Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Nas record, Magic 3. Nas may very well be the greatest comeback story of the decade so far. I mean, the guy's a legend through and through, there's no debating that, but at the same time, before King's Disease in 2020, his last notable release was maybe 2012's Life is Good, and even then, that's debatable. That's an argument to be had all on its own, but nonetheless, it had been a good while since one of the greatest of all time proved that he was one of the greatest of all time. Then, with producer Hit Boy by his side, Nas proceeded to plow through the first few years of the 2020s, releasing 6 projects via the King's Disease series and the Magic series of albums. And with King's Disease 3 perfectly wrapping up that respective series last year, it only seems right that Magic gets the same treatment with its own third entry in 2023. Magic 3 is not only a beautiful way to close out a nearly flawless run of 3 albums, 6 if you really want to include the King's Disease albums as well, but it's also, without a doubt in my mind, the best album from the Magic series and one of the best things that Nas has put out in general in years. It's easily on the exact same level as King's Disease 2 and 3, my personal favorites of the 6 albums that he's released up to this point in the 2020s. Above all else, Magic 3 is a very celebratory record, whether he's celebrating himself on tracks like Superhero Status, A Glamorous Lifestyle on Blue Bentley, the longevity of his career on songs like Never Die alongside Lil Wayne, someone fittingly placed on this record, seeing as Wayne is also in the same legendary standings as Nas at this point. My point is that it's an album about celebration. I mean, the record was literally released on Nas's birthday. It got released on the man's birthday. You don't get more celebratory than your birthday. If you can find a more celebratory record this year, tell me what it is. I have yet to find it. That being said, these songs aren't really chest-puffing or anything like that either. They are honest-to-God celebrations of life, specifically Nas's life, and ultimately they go over extremely well because of that. They aren't self-indulgent, they're actually pretty self-aware. Perhaps the more poignant moments on Magic 3, however, actually come in the form of some admittedly darker passages throughout the record. Take the track Based on True Events, for example. It's the first part of a 2-part excellent narrative, or at least semi-narrative duet of songs, and ultimately, I think that it really does represent the darker elements of this record and what they represent for Nas in the current moment. There's a moment in that song specifically where he pays tribute to Half a Mill, a Brooklyn rapper who unfortunately passed away in 2003, and despite being a very brief moment, there's the lyrics, "Was it self-inflicted, somebody came to get you, maybe I'm paranoid about something sabotaging the path he was on, but you passed on," in reference to Half a Mill's assumed suicide, although it seems, based on these lyrics alone, Nas has some legitimate questions about that. Then again, is it just his own paranoia from scars and past trauma after living a less than safe lifestyle for an extended period of time? It leaves a lot of questions in the air for the listener, and ultimately it reflects the sort of grizzled veteran status that Nas has at this point, and it also acts as a sort of character study of Nas in turn. Now that Nas is back where he was in the mainstream conscience back in the Illmatic days, it kind of seems like he has to come face to face with his own flawed self and his own rocky past, and that means that a lot of moments here kind of come across as touching, but at the same time, even a little bit emotionally heavy. I mean, that's not the entirety of the record, of course. If it were, things would be a bit too depressing for their own good. But nonetheless, Magic 3 has a lot of these heavily introspective moments within the same ballpark as what I just mentioned that feel pretty powerful, all things considered. Meanwhile, Nas himself sounds as good as ever behind the mic. He's always been a competent MC, even on his worst albums, and he's always been a great MC on his best albums, like this one, for example. That being said, it certainly does help that Hit Boy managed to put together a series of outstanding instrumentals with a variety of well-curated, fittingly vintage samples being sprinkled throughout, ultimately making for a very lively listening experience. The final moments of the record, which come from the song 1-800-NAS and Hit, see Nas name-dropping virtually everyone that he can that was involved with his rise back to the top this record in specific, as well as a number of his loved ones who may not necessarily have a role in his musical career, but nonetheless play an important role in his life at the present moment, and I feel like in a way that is deeply representative of what Magic 3 is. Specifically, Magic 3, at least I feel, represents Nas seeing that he is back where he belongs, and that he can now celebrate that with the people around him, as well as with his fanbase, for that matter, as if King's Disease and the other two Magic albums didn't already prove that. And I do have to say that if you somehow weren't impressed with either of the first two Magic albums, and if you somehow weren't impressed with any of the King's Disease albums, still give Magic 3 a shot. It's an entirely different vibe, and it feels like a man who's reflecting on the good, the bad, and learning to just live in the present. It's a powerful record, and it's a pretty positive one, even in its more depressing moments. I'm going to give this record 4 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.